So, I finally got a new handgun. It's a Deagle. In real life, the Desert Eagle is a large caliber handgun manufactured by Magnum Research, which is an Israeli weapons company. It was made famous by the fact that it can fire a 50 caliber pistol round, the 50 AE. Because of this, it is quite large. It's been popularized in video games and movies alike, and it's pretty much one of the most recognizable handguns on the planet. So, why do I have an airsoft one? Well, as I've complained about in many previous videos, my current primary is just getting a little old. Actually, now after doing some looks at it, I really think it's just the magazines. I had 4 magazines for this gun. 3 of them no longer function properly, and only 1 does. When I use that 1 magazine, the thing works good, but I just got tired of having issues when I brought this gun out to play. So I needed a new one. When I was doing research for weapons, it finally I broke it down to a few weapons, including the Elite Force 1911, and then this as well. At first I was almost pretty sure I was going to get the Elite Force 1911 because of its utility. It has a threaded barrel, it functions well, it has plenty of upgrade parts, magazines, and it is not too expensive. The Elite Force 1911, very good gun, very cool. And then I was looking at the Desert Eagle because it's a freaking Deagle. And you know, on this channel, I go for form over function. I don't care how it works if it looks cool while doing it. That's not entirely true, but I just thought, you know, being me, I wanted this sweet looking weapon. But looks aren't everything. We need to look at how it functions. But before that, let's take a closer look. Alright, so it's been a while since I've done a good old-fashioned unboxing, and the reason why is because I have no money and I haven't bought anything. That's honestly it. So, it is Christmas and I have another gun here. First, let's take a look at the box. Magnum Research CO2 Desert Eagle by KWC. According to the box, it shoots 390 FPS with a 0.2 gram BB. That's probably a lie. I hope it's a lie because that wouldn't be legal in CQB, and that's a little high for a gas blowback or CO2 blowback. A whole bunch of things on the size and whatnot. We don't really care about that. What we care about is inside here. And mediocre packaging, honestly, just styrofoam, but who really cares? The gun works. This is a speed loader. It's not one of those pushy style speed loaders. It's one where you have a rod that you gotta jam in here. You fill the BBs up top, put this on the magazine, and just jam them down. And unfortunately, because of the design of this weapon, you must use this speed loader. The mag, the top of it is not like a normal one, or usually you could load BBs down through the bottom with a normal speed loader. You can't with this. You have to stick this thing on like that and force the BBs in, which isn't really a big deal when you're staging area, but if you want to reload your magazines while you're on the field with the speed loader, that is not going to happen. As you can see, there's some BBs in it. I have already opened and fired this gun. It works, thank God. But let's look at the gun itself. Interesting things, we have trades. These are painted on, but Desert Eagle pistol, Magnum Research from Minnesota, USA. And these are accurate to a Desert Eagle you would buy from the United States. This isn't from, this isn't an Israeli one, this would be an American Desert Eagle you could buy. On the other side here, we have a warning sticker. Let's just see how easy that is to get off. More or less easy enough. I peeled a little bit of it off, but you know, with some elbow grease and maybe a little rubbing alcohol, I can get this whole thing off. The rest of that will come out, I'm sure, no problem. Yeah, just look at that. This is some styrofoam on it. The action. It's just a nice looking and sounding weapon. We also got an Allen key here for the magazine for putting the CO2 in the magazine. And bam, now we are back up here. So first thing I did is I took a little more time to get rid of the sticker on the side. There's still a little bit of adhesive there, but it's gonna dry out maybe in a couple days and I can wipe it down properly. Other than that, I've already shown you the trades. Let's talk about the construction first. The Desert Eagle in real life is obviously full metal and it's probably a steel. It's a very heavy weapon. This gun is not so heavy, actually not as heavy as I would assume. I'm not a massive guy, but this is very easy for me to manipulate, especially two-handed. The Desert Eagle is a large weapon for a handgun, but looking at it with having it in my hand, I wouldn't say the gun is like, you know, very big. I've heard people saying that's like, oh, I can barely get my hand around the handle, yada, yada, yada. That's not true. This is actually extremely comfortable for me to hold, and I have no problem, you know, manipulating any of the functions with a single hand. So the upper receiver is metal and the lower receiver is plastic. So we have metal slide, metal barrel, metal hammer, and metal trigger, metal slide catch, and also metal takedown button and lever. All those parts on top are metal. All the parts on the bottom, however, are plastic. So that includes, you know, the trigger guard, the pistol grip, and also the grips on the side here. If you'll notice here, the safety is ambidextrous, and we've actually got three functions. We've got a safe, semi, and full auto. Yes, this Desert Eagle fires full automatic, which is another one of the reasons that I picked it up over the 1911, because it has a fun switch. The safety is very tight. Like, pushing down, obviously going with gravity is much easier, but when I'm pushing up, it's a little tougher for me to get it onto, you know, semi-automatic. Either I push too hard and it goes all the way up to full, and I have to bring it back down and try again. But obviously you can just use, you know, your other hand if that's an issue. Also, me personally, I never use safeties on airsoft guns. Just take the magazine out and fire. It's like, it's done. The gun looks good, it feels good. It's lighter than the real one by far. On top, that is a 20mm Picatinny rail for, God forbid, you want to put in optic or something on there, you know. Put a nice small 2x scope on there. That'd be pretty neat, huh? If you take a look at the action, just look how that thing opens up. On Desert Eagles, the barrel is stationary. The barrel does not move, unlike your standard handgun, where when you pull back, the barrel actually moves, lock back, there you go. The barrel actually moves up a little bit because the barrel's just, you know, kind of floating in there. However, when messing around with this gun, I noticed that it is a little less satisfactory to manipulate and fire than, say, the APS over there. And I think most of that stems from all the, you know, moving parts in this gun. It's really in the slide. This gun does have a hammer, which is nice because it's coming from a hammerless pistol. But the thing is, the trigger is always in this position. That might not mean a lot to you if you don't fire pistols, but so this is the APS, obviously. The trigger is locked back because the trigger has been pulled, the fire pin's been activated, but it didn't recycle. If I slide the slide back, you see how the trigger shoots forward like that? That means it's primed and ready to fire. And when it's forward like this, that means the thing is primed. If I had the magazine in it and I fired it, the trigger would come back into this position. If I fire it now, you got a click, and then you got nothing. The trigger stays locked back because it is dependent on the action of the handgun moving. All the trigger does here, seems to be, is activate the hammer. See, here the trigger, same place, move the hammer back. You hear a click, but the trigger doesn't move. And this is interesting. That means you do not need to cock the slide back to prime the weapon, because when you're cocking the slide back, all you're doing is actually getting the hammer ready, because I think that's actually where the firing mechanism is, the hammer moving forward. So if I've got a full magazine here, I come up reload, instead of racking the slide, I could just pull the hammer back and I'm ready to shoot. That's not very realistic, but that just seems to be how this weapon functions. Speaking of magazine, takes a 12-gram CO2 cartridge. You just stick it in and tighten down the screw with the included Allen key. It's larger because the gun's larger. And I'm not exactly super happy with needing to use the proprietary speed loader, but it is what it is. Who cares? When you fire your last shot, the slide should lock back like so. Your slide release is right here. You just hit that and you're ready to go. So with that out of the way, I think we should take it out and do some shooting. Let's go. Alright guys, we're out here about to do some shooting before it gets too dark. But before that, I just want to show you guys this holster.
Alright, I just wanted to show you this absolute unit of a holster. What this is, it's a drop leg universal holster I picked up off Amazon, and you can actually adjust it so that it can fit a Desert Eagle, and when I slide it in, the thing actually goes past the trigger guard, which is where I wanted it. I'm not a fan of the thumb catch system, but I need to use it because the gun's so big it'll probably fall out.
Okay, next we are going to have ourselves a little chrono. So, another Christmas present, this chronograph. The problem is that I only have, let's turn the light off. Problem is, the gun's loaded up with .25s, but luckily we have a setting here that in the top left it'll give me joules, and then I can first actually I gotta set it to .25s. There we go. So in the top right, you see there that the chrono is set to .25s. In the top left, it's going to give us joules. So it'll be interesting to see the FPS, but we need to keep in mind that that is with .25. So let's give it a few shoots. This is a brand new CO2 cartridge. It says that I'm at 412 FPS. If it'll focus. Come on. 412 FPS. That is concerning. Next we got 400. Missed. 392. Obviously it's going down because as the CO2 gets used up, it's a little weaker. But we're at 392. 384. 378. 373. 370, and obviously it's going to keep going down. So unfortunately it is shooting a little hot, but it sure is shooting, huh? Over here now, just to give you guys a view of the action while shooting. Huh. So we're out of BBs, but the slide didn't lock back. That leads me to believe that the amount of power necessary to lock the slide back on the last shot is less than what is in the CO2 cartridge at the end of the first magazine. This thing is really pumping out CO2, shooting 400 FPS downrange and also moving this massive slide. That is a lot of work. Let's refill the mag and fire some full auto. So the very first time I shot this, I did the same thing. I filled up the mag a second time and then used full auto. Something to note is that you use more CO2 when firing full auto than firing semi. And what happened last time is I couldn't make it through the whole mag firing on full automatic. So we'll see if that's the thing here. Yeah, I still have a few BBs in the magazine. Obviously there's no way to tell how many, which is unfortunate. But we are out of CO2. I think I might load it up with one more CO2 and fire only on semi and see how many magazines I can get out of it. Alright guys, last test. Semi only, longevity. So one thing to note is that it's a little cold out. It's not super freezing, there's no snow on the ground obviously, so maybe the weather won't affect the gas that much, because CO2 is a little more robust than green gas. So this is the first fresh magazine, fresh CO2. That should help. We are out of BBs. Again, the slide did not lock back. Okay, magazine number 2. The weird thing is that sometimes I'm not getting any feeding. Like you see the action cycle, but no BB. No BB comes out. So I don't know if that's a me thing or what. Like, doesn't fire? Not firing? I think what's happening is that because there's not enough power to pull that slide back all the way, that the next BB isn't actually getting loaded into the chamber. Like if the slide goes like, whoop, instead of coming all the way back and kicking, getting a full kick, that's enough kick to reset the hammer, and enough kick to push the action back just a little bit. But without getting a full cycle, it's not feeding. So like if I rack it right now completely, I'm sure the BB will fire. Yep. Yeah, every time I racked it, a BB would come out. So I'm thinking there's not enough kick. Now that's interesting. Like I don't think I'm loading the CO2 into the magazine wrong, and when there's plenty of CO2 in it, it feeds fine. Then we get to a certain point where it's only feeding every other BB, which is disappointing to say the least. The other thing is that my BBs are dropping, probably because they're .25s, and I've actually got no idea where the hop-up is on this gun. I don't remember seeing a manual when I got this. I just opened the gun and it was there. And it doesn't look like I can access the hop-up just like this, but I haven't taken the weapon down.
So I couldn't release this video without actually doing any research to see if there was a hop-up. Yes, there is a hop-up. It's this little notch on top of the inner barrel right here, and shortly after making this complete video, I adjusted it. So yes, there is a hop-up. It's right here. You just need a small tool and you need to take the barrel out to adjust it.
Why don't we do that right now? Let's field strip it right here outside. So, boom, just like that. In order to field strip the KWC Desert Eagle, you can keep the magazine in or the magazine out. But what you're going to do is you're going to push this button on this side, and while that button is pushed in, you're going to push forward the takedown lever like that. That's going to allow you to remove the barrel. Now, here you can see the inner barrel hop-up bucking, I think, and whatnot. And I would assume that the hop-up, if there was one, would be right here. I guess I didn't research this to see if it came with hop-up because I assumed it would, because why wouldn't it? And then here, also you can see inside the action, it's got 2 recoil springs instead of 1. And just look at this mock bolt. And the real Desert Eagle, it has a bolt like a rifle. It's got a bolt like an AR-15, and they mimic that with this. And there it looks like that's where the nozzle is. But looking inside, I'm going to have to research this, and please look this up because I could very well be wrong. But this gun actually might not have a hop-up. And that's not something that I even anticipated. I just assumed that it would come with one. But it just intrigues me. In fact, it's probably because this slide is metal and so large that the gun can get to a point where there's not enough CO2 in the canister that must do what it is that it will not cycle. When the first shots were going, those were like 400 FPS with a .25, which is extremely, extremely interesting to say the least. Anyway, oops, I shouldn't have done that. I knocked the recoil springs loose because I launched the slide forward. Now with the recoil springs back in their proper position, what you do is you pop the barrel in right there, you push it, and just push back on it until it will no longer move. Then you just put the takedown lever back in place, and you're good to go. Alright guys, because I will not let this go, I loaded up one more CO2 thing, and I just tightened it. I tightened it more than I did before. Usually I just tightened it until I stopped hearing the coming out. But this time I tightened it a little bit more because I could. And I'm just going to empty a mag just to see if the slide will lock back, because maybe there's a little bit of CO2 that was leaking out that I couldn't tell. Also, now's a good time to show you. The hammer's forward, the trigger, when I pull it, nothing happens. So if I just cock the hammer back,
it fires. So that's the thing. Also, it's not. We're getting it again where it's not firing. And also it's weird. When it gets to the end of the power there, it starts firing on full automatic. See? Little burst fire action there. So I think that something must be wrong because that is fresh CO2. I hadn't fired a mag before that. Yeah, I froze myself a little bit there. That's really interesting. Maybe it is the weather. I don't know. We'll have to look into this further. But just the fact that, also when I start loosening this up and take it out, like a decent amount of CO2 seems to still be in there. So I don't exactly know what's going on here. Maybe there's a leak that I don't know about. But and now we're out of BBs. But that was a fresh CO2, so I should have been able to put another mag with the BBs in there. I'm thinking that this thing is leaking, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just really just not tightening it down enough. Maybe I'm tightening it too much. Who knows? Did you see all that CO2 that came out when I loosened it up? Like, that was a pretty good amount. I think I'm gonna let it warm up, and I'm gonna try it some more on my own time. Maybe it's this magazine's just a little wonky. Maybe I just really need to tighten that CO2 down a lot more. I still wanna strip this, you know. But there is room. I can keep tightening it. I feel like it should be firing, just like as it is. I just need some silicone oil. Who knows? I'll find out later.
And we are back. So, final thoughts. This is going to be my new secondary from now on.
That is, if I can lower the FPS but also figure out why the reliability of the cycle is so low. I'm not sure, but I feel like those two things are connected. I really feel like it shouldn't be shooting that hot and that the cycle shouldn't be that weak.
I already have a holster, a thigh holster, and I'm just gonna, carry it with me. It is a little bit clunky, but again, it being airsoft and super light, I think it's just gonna be a lot of fun to pull one of these out and go to town, future plans for this gun, because I can't leave anything stock. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a sick paint job, which is obviously super necessary. I might even consider putting an optic on it. All that will probably be in a future video. So if you like this kind of thing, consider leaving a like, consider leaving a comment. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. We've got a lot of cool videos coming out in the future. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.